I have been in that. I have been in the under President Mahinda Rajapaksa's government, but we functioned well there. We would have had our faults, but he ran the country. But under Gotabaya Rajapaksa, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, this was chaos.
So Chandrika Kumaratunga is supporting Maithripala Sirisena now.
I mean, the party is there, it's the Bandaranaike family. That is how Sri Lanka Freedom Party comes from that. What better support base can we have? Can with all these people joining together?
He is being blamed as the main culprit, or as the main accused in allowing this to take place.
So this question of that he is a culprit is absolutely wrong, and it is totally baseless allegation that is going about.
Because now he is heading the party. I mean, do you think he still has the public support out there?
Of course he does, but not 100% of the public. No party, no leader will have 100% of the public support.
We see some parties now aligning with certain countries. You have the pro-Chinese, you have the pro-Indian, the pro-Western.
Sri Lanka also, we must take a stand. Every day we can't say, we are non-aligned, we are non-aligned, we are non-aligned.
Hello and welcome to another episode of On Fire here on Daily Mirror. I'm Easwaran Rutnam. With 2024 being the election year, the parties that are set to contest this election, especially the main parties, are having seemingly their own issues. We see a lot of issues in the SLPP. We see some issues in the SJB as well. And of course, we see some issues in the SLFP. To discuss the future of the SLFP, how the SLFP is going to face the upcoming elections, whichever election that may be, and the current issues in the country, the economy, how the SLFP can address these economic issues, is SLFP Assistant Secretary General, Mr. Sajin Vass Gunawardena. We try to get him on the screen right now. Hello, Mr. Sajin Vass Gunawardena. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Easwaran. How are you? Hope you're doing well.
I'm good, thank you. It's good to see you again.
Yes.
So you hold a few designations or a few posts in the SLFP. The SLFP, of course, was one of the strongest parties in Sri Lankan politics till recent times, of course. Where is the SLFP now? What is the current status?
Well, I think you are... Well, firstly, thank you very much for having me on your program. And what you just said is quite right. You said the SLFP was one of the strongest parties in the country. And I would like to tell you that when you interpret the strength of a party, I think sometimes people misinterpret what strength is all about. Now, from our perspective, the strength of the party may depend on how effective we are at the grassroots level with our cadre. And I must tell you that it is no secret that majority of the SLPP base was from our base, from the SLFP base. But now we see that there is a tendency that they are coming back to us. And we see that most of the majority of the SLPP members who are disgruntled and fed up with what the SLPP has done to this country are basically, amalgamating themselves with us. And we are becoming a very strong component in a grassroots level campaign.
So when you say you're becoming a very strong component in a grassroots level, you are in a sense saying that the party is now growing more stronger by numbers, is it? Or what exactly are you saying? Because when we look at the number game, I mean, that's what will count at the end of the day, wouldn't it? The numbers.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, it is how much we can amass for ourselves in terms of support, in terms of the numbers.
Yeah.
How many people in Sri Lanka at a grassroots level will opt to come back to the come look at the Sri Lanka Freedom Party vis-a-vis any other party that is there. So fundamentally, we have a special case because it is our party majority that left to the SLPP. So it is up to us to navigate ourselves in a way that we get that majority back, and we are doing that now. We are doing that very effectively. And these assessments that are done that you see floating around on social media, I don't know how accurate they are, because I mean, when we go to the villages, when we do politics, now I've been going around the country quite a bit, and what we see and what we feel is a different thing, of course.
What
You
are these
see,
assessments you're talking about? What I mean, are you saying about the numbers when it comes to the NPP? Because the talk of the town is that the NPP is very popular, and there is this wave shifting towards the NPP, especially after Aragalaya.
yeah, so you see, the thing is again, Easwaran, now all these things are decided on the premise of what you can gather in the social media, essentially,
Mm.
right? I mean, no, I mean, even nobody, these surveys that are being done. Now, recently I saw a survey, 1,500 telephone calls. Then another survey I saw about almost about 7,000 people. So if you look at it, let's talk pragmatically and practically. If you look at it, in the urban population, there is a drive towards them that you can't deny, right? But what percentage that is from the whole equation, right? And how best they can maintain a huge lead when you consider the entire political apparatus, that is yet to be seen. That can't be determined by way of looking at the social media behavior pattern.
So who? I mean, now right now, Maithripala Sirisena, former president, is the party leader. Uh, let's say there's a presidential election within the next few months or whenever. Is Maithripala Sirisena going to be the presidential candidate? Is that something that has been decided by
So
the
you
party?
answered you answered that question yourself, because you say let's say. So when there is a if and when there is a presidential election, we will get together and we will announce who our candidate is. Now, as we speak now, there is a huge alliance that is being formed, centering around the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, and negotiations are going on, discussions are going on, and we have the blessings of the former president, Madam Chandrika Bandaranayakumaratunga also, and our party leader, President Sirisena. So they're working together, and we have a lot of strong people, a lot of good people who are joining with us. And I believe that in time to come, once it is fully formed and fully fledged, you will see us as a formidable force to be reckoned with in a political arena.
So Chandrika Kumartunga is supporting Maithripala Sirisena now.
Yes, of course, we're working together because she's, I mean, after all, she was the former president of the country, former leader of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. And I mean, the party is theirs, the Bandaranaike family, that is how Sri Lanka Freedom Party comes from that. So, what better support base can we have? Can with all these people joining together?
Um, Maithripala Sirisena was given a chance in 2015, and you know, joining with Rani Wickramasinghe, things got messed up with the Easter Sunday attacks, and he is still blamed. Although there are two people involved there, he is being blamed as the main culprit, as the main accused in allowing this to take place. Do you think the people would have now forgotten that? You think they would just let go and support
Eastern,
a party which is led by Maithripala Sirisena?
Eastern, I must correct you there. You must read the Supreme Court judgment that is given where including President Citizen and others were asked to pay compensation.
Yeah.
In that judgment, it is very clearly written that President Sirisena was not informed, and that nobody in terms of the investigation, in terms of the commission, that it was not established, and nobody gave evidence to say that President Sirisena was informed. So that is established by a Supreme Court judgment. Now, the fact of compensation that was asked to be paid, it is not a conviction, mind you. It is compensation. Now, the compensation aspect, what the Supreme Court in their judgment, what they said is, if you refer to page 71, Actually, this is something that I think you should read as well. Go to page 71 and see the entire plaint that was put in the Supreme Court, which is written there, was pursuant the facts that was given at the Presidential Commission of Inquiry, Parliamentary Commission of Inquiry. Now we have a law in Sri Lanka that any evidence that is given before a commission is inadmissible before court. That is our existing law. Now, in page 71, it very clearly states there. I believe it's the CJ, Honorable CJ, who is writing there. He's airing his opinion that when this inadmissible evidence was presented to the court, there was no objection by the defense. Therefore, the honorable court had to look at a perspective of how this inadmissible evidence can be accepted. And they looked at a principle called the Carltona doctrine, and they basically brought that and accepted this inadmissible evidence in order to for the court to recognize this, and that is how that the court determined that compensation should be paid. It is on page 71. You can read it and see. So this question of that he is a culprit is absolutely wrong, and it is totally baseless allegation that is going about, which is justified by the contents of the Supreme Court judgment.
So you do feel that he has the support, the public support, whatever the Supreme Court order may be.
Well, obviously, I mean, you see, okay,
I mean, not
we
as
are
a
talking
party,
about.
not Maithripala Sirisena.
Pardon? Tell me again.
Not as a party, not the SLFP as a party, but Maithripala Sirisena, because now he's heading the party. I mean, do you think he still has the public support out there?
Of course he does, but not 100% of the public. No party, no leader will have 100% of the public support.
Yeah.
But as far as the Sri Lanka Freedom Party is concerned, our base is concerned, and certain components of the people of this country, whether it is in the provinces, whether it is in the urban areas, definitely he does have element of support. There is no two words about it. Whether that is 30%, whether that is 50%, whether that is 60%, that is yet to be seen in election. But most certainly, as a politician, as a former president, he's the only one eligible from the former presidents to be even considered to be a candidate.
Is Dayasiri Jayasekara not really leaving the party, but the issues that he had with the party and a couple of others also leaving, is that hurting the SLFP? Is that going to dent the SLFP in any way?
You see, I will answer that in a personal thing. If I leave the party, I am the one who is going to get hurt and not the party, because the party is where you have succession. And electorally also, Kurunagala, yes, he was a strength to us, no two words about it. But circumstances led to the fact that whatever problems that existed, he had to basically what happened. But
so has the door been shut on him now?
No, it's not. Actually, it's not. We have the leader, President Maithripala Sirisena, has already intimated to him that he can come back anytime he wants, and also I think the senior vice president post was offered to him. But I don't think my dear friend, Honorable Dayasiri Jayasekara, is looking at it positive.
And of course, now the biggest issue is the economy. What are the solutions that these parties, the main parties, have to address both the economy and other main national issues? How will the SLFP face this? I mean, we are seeing different views coming from both the SJB and the NPP, saying if they come to power, how they will deal with it, how they'll deal with the IMF especially. How will the SLFP look to address the economic issue?
Easwaran, I think let me answer that question in partitions. When you look at the historical data and what happened, the process that happened that led to this whole situation, it's not a secret. We know it was absolute mismanagement, and we know the reasons why it happened. Now, from a personal perspective, when the new governor, the current governor, when he was appointed new, I mean, I think he came on a Friday afternoon. By a Saturday morning, he basically said that we can't pay our debts. Whether that is to be interpreted as a declaration of bankruptcy or not is a matter of interpretation. But once that happened, we had no other route to go, but we had to stick to the IMF path. Now, having said that, definitely we should have gone to the IMF long before we had the crisis. But then we would have gone on a different context. We wouldn't have not been as a defaulter or a bankrupt nation. But when you declare yourself and you identify yourself as a bankrupt nation, there is only one track that you can go, and that we are in that track at the moment. So, in that context, there is no room for us to waver because the fundamentals of the economy, I mean, we are looking at a minus 12.5% 1.5 years ago. And it is commendable economically where the economy has come from minus 12.5 to a positive aspect in this quarter and perhaps a nominal growth in the next quarter. So the commonality in all this is whether it is the SLFP, whether it is the UNP, whether it is the SJB, whether it is the MPP, there is a fundamental approach and a fundamental discipline and a fundamental norm that we have to follow in terms of getting our economy back and running. Now, when you look at the period from 2025 to 2027, by 2027, if we are to facilitate our loan repayments, we have to have a 14% revenue as per GDP. We are at 8 to 9% now. Now, whoever takes over power end of the year, that is the challenge that we are going to have. Otherwise, we are going to face the same problem that we faced 1.5 years ago. So therefore, when you look at a broad economic policy that is required for the country in terms of a fundamental approach, it is common to all political parties. Having said that, the only major issue that we are having today, why 45% of the country today is suffering, number one is food insecurity. Number two, because of the contraction of the economy contracted by minus 12.5%. There are no economic opportunities for the people to carve out their livelihood. Now, this is one area that even this government must look at. Unfortunately, due to the liquidity crisis and maybe other reasons, they are not looking at that perspective. So, therefore, now I saw a UNDP report recently, I saw that being quoted, that 54% of our GDP is being spread only with 5% of our population. So, this is where the issue is. Now today, if you take a laborer, if you take a farmer, if you take a fisherman, if you take a normal factory worker, the problem is they are willing to work, they are willing to sweat and find their money, but that opportunity is not there. So this is what we have to create. Unless we do this, unless we create that economic opportunity for them to have a livelihood, a daily income, right? All these what we are doing is not going to serve any purpose. So I believe that whether it is the NPP, whether it is the SLFP, JVP, SJB, UNP, whoever comes, there has to be a very strict discipline and one approach to achieve our fundamentals and for the spread of to reduce the discrepancies that exist in society now.
But does that economic policy that the SLFP might bring in also include, high taxes? Now we see the IMF wanting the Sri Lankan government to increase taxes. The government has done that. The people are not very happy. But in the broader aspect, it looks like, this is something that should have been done some time ago. At least that's what the current administration is saying. If this was done some time ago, then it wouldn't have led to something like a situation what we're facing right now. I guess the IMF's concern is that, if there's a change in administration, how will the new government deal with it? So how will the SLFP deal with the IMF policies, the current agreement, restructuring debt, and so on?
See, I think we have to look at it from a very pragmatic point of view because number one, now now the government, I think, is constrained in achieving a very high target, revenue target with the existing tax base. But now, what we would have to look at is how we are going to broaden that tax base and bringing the individual exposure down. That is one aspect that we have to look at. Now, without data, I can't tell you offhandedly how that is going to be achieved and within what period of time. Now, bearing in mind that we have to bring our revenue to 14% of GDP in a period of 2 to 3 years, and bearing in mind that even to sustain the debt restructuring that is happening now, and what would happen post March, that we need to have about 9 to 10 to 11% of revenue of GDP to sustain this restructuring process, right? The avenues that we have economically, from economic perspective, is very low. So that is why we have to look at alternatives. We have to have as much as possible currency swaps. Our trading must be through international trading, must be through these currency swaps. Broaden the tax base, increase our production. Now we must look at commercial agriculture. We must look at commercial fisheries. We must look at value addition. And these things must happen practically at the grassroots level, and a state apparatus must bring these forces together so that there is alternative methodology of increasing revenue, of creating livelihood, and then contributing to GDP. So we, SLFP, we are in the process of preparing our economic roadmap, and hopefully by about March we should be able to put it out, and then you will see how pragmatic we are going to be, and we will be very straightforward. And it's not going to be theoretical; it's going to be practical, and specific solutions we will be giving in that proposals.
You spoke about the SLFP forming a broad alliance. We also see these same words being mentioned by other political parties as well, the SJB, the NPP, and even the UNP. Would the SLFP look at working with a couple of the main political parties, be it the SLPP or the UNP or the SJB, when forming this broad alliance? Is there space for you all to work together come election time, or is this going to be a 3-4 way battle?
See, Iswaran, uh, when the Aragale time, when all these problems are taking place, and when a new government was mooted under President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's time, and a new PM was to be selected, and when discussions were going on, it was President Maithripala, former President Maithripala Sirisena, who actually suggested a all-party government, a national government, where we agree on a trajectory and a plan of action, and we go on that basis with a new prime minister, and go towards those goals, and then go for election. I think majority of the parties at that time agreed, but unfortunately the SLPP did not agree. So I think your question, in the context of answering your question, I don't think we are, as a party, the SLFP, we are not looking at any alliance or any coalition or any arrangement with the SLPP, because it is the SLPP who has brought this country to its knees. And so, therefore, there is no necessity, there is no reasoning, and there is no acceptability to any SLPP politician even to contest another election. Ideally, they should sit back and wait, accept what the calamities that has happened, right, and give the country a chance to re-amalgamate and come out of this problem.
But that's the SLPP. But now, if the SLPP were to work with the UNP or with Ranil Wickremesinghe, how would the SLFP look to counter that? Let's say the SJB wants SLFP support. Would there be an alliance between those two parties? That is the SLFP and the SJB.
See, those are things I can't say yes or no, because those have to be decided by the central committee of the party and the politburo of the party, and those are discussions that should take place between political parties. But I can say up to now, of course, there has been no intimation of that nature. And but certainly, most certainly, the Sri Lanka Freedom Party is a very, very pragmatic, liberal, open political party that we believe on the middle path. And so, I mean, when we come to the bridge, let's cross it. Let's see how it works.
But how, I mean, you did mention about the SLPP being one of the main causes for the crisis that Sri Lanka is facing right now. And the word that comes up quite often is accountability. What would, authorities or governments do to
Iswaran,
hold those
I
accountable?
missed your Iswaran, I missed your question because you were lagging behind. Can you ask that again, please?
Yeah, so you mentioned about the SLPP being responsible for the economic crisis, for the situation that the country is facing right now. And one of the words that tends to come up often is accountability. So if the SLPP is responsible for this crisis, not if, but there's clear evidence that they are. What would the SLFP do if it comes to power? Because we see a lot of people being
See,
responsible for so many things, and then no one is held accountable.
Iswaran, there is a very clear judgment given by the Supreme Court in terms of who is responsible for what.
Yeah,
Now, the SLFP is not a court of law, no. Neither can we be the executor. So I think that judgment speaks for itself. And if they have any shame and responsibility, they should respect that judgment because it's a fact, no. It is not hearsay. The country that was handed over in 2019 by 2022 went back minus 12.5%. People didn't have food, people didn't have gas, people didn't have fuel, right? People didn't have electricity. These are fundamental basic management aspects of a country. I have been in that. I have been in the under President Mahinda Rajapaksa's government, but we functioned well there. We would have had our faults, but he ran the country.
yeah.
But under Gotabaya Rajapaksa, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, this was chaos, right? And the exchange, whatever we had in the central bank from 7.5 billion came down to zero within 1.5 years. So it is a fact. It is not hearsay. And that fact is substantiated. And the aspect of responsibility, the Supreme Court has given 100% clarity in their judgment.
But the
So
issue
I
is
think it
that
is not.
no matter what the Supreme Court judgment may be, we've seen Supreme Court orders on a couple of other issues as well, including on the acting IGP. Yet he is still the acting IGP. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Basil Rajapaksa, and others are not really being held accountable for the economic crimes that took place in the country. So, wouldn't there be a need for some political steps to be taken as well to ensure that there is justice?
See, Sharan, you can't term anything as political steps. No, there's a law of the land, and you have to function under that law. And what is the Supreme Court judgment is pursuant to a fundamental rights petition that was filed. So there is no law in the existing country where you can hold somebody accountable for economic mismanagement. That is not there. I don't think any country has that. So these are matters. So, but that is what the people of this country must take recognition of. The fact that the apex legal entity in this country has adjudicated that these are the people who are responsible. So I think the people in time to come will give their verdict, and that will be the best verdict that you can get within a democratic process.
These new bills that the government has brought in is also concerning for a lot of people, especially the online safety bill. How does the SLFP see this? How will the SLFP deal with it if it comes to power?
Well, we voted against it as a party. Fundamentally, you see, I have a different personal view on this also, which I'm going to have. See, freedom of expression must be there 100%. No entity, whether it is a government or apparatus of the government, should be permitted to stifle that freedom of expression. But if you look at the social media today, the amount of nonsense that is there, amount of false, amount of fake news, the amount of manipulation, the amount of extortion that takes place. Now these are classified as crimes. So I think the bills, what they should have done is concentrate on the aspect of the criminality rather than a overall blanket on it. So as far as the Sri Lanka Freedom Party is concerned, all our members of parliament representing the Sri Lanka Freedom Party in the opposition voted against it. And we believe that the people must have freedom to express whatever they think is right. And the other thing is that you see, when you have draconian pieces of legislation which is open for interpretation, then how that law is implemented is always detrimental to the common man in the country. I have personally gone through that process, and I'm a victim of that. So I can personally speak for that.
Uh, you, of course, were one time involved in the foreign ministry, and Sri Lanka's foreign relations has been critical in this economic crisis, getting the country out of it. Um, we see some parties now aligning with certain countries. You have the pro-Chinese, you have the pro-Indian, the pro-Western. Where does the SLFP stand?
See, SLFP is very. We have a very clear view of this. Number one, we have a geopolitical presence, we have economic presence, we have a international trade presence. Now, these three things together is what forms our foreign policy. Now, we have been traditionally following a non-aligned standard status. And that is where we stand because we don't get involved in conflicts between other countries. But however, having said that, how does one balance the complexities that exist between the Chinese relationship with India and with US? This is what it is now finally, right? I mean, when you look at the geopolitical nature, Indo-Pacific policy, right? Then the Road at Belt Initiative. So I think from our perspective, we should see what is good for Sri Lanka and what we can get to benefit Sri Lanka from one thing. So one thing fundamentally is our seas must be clear of any military activity. I think India shares the same view, Sri Lanka shares the same view, right? But at the same time, maritime freedom pertaining to Sri Lanka, economic freedom pertaining to Sri Lanka must be guaranteed. And Sri Lanka also, we must take a stand. Every day we can't say we are non-aligned, we are non-aligned, we are non-aligned. Because there are certain aspects of a relationship. I'm talking about the current day context where it affects Sri Lanka. Sometimes in the past, in my experience in dealing with the foreign minister in the foreign ministry with international relations, by us not taking a participatory role, we have lost a lot. And in our context of having a participatory role in any process, it is not the size of the country that matters. It is our strategic location that matters, and being a sovereign country. So perhaps at times we have lost exercising our rights by not being a participatory factor. So therefore, we must be friends with all, enemy to none. I think that is the policy that we should take forward.
So you think the decision taken by the current administration to get involved in the Red Sea was the right move? Because that it's being questioned by a few here.
So my question is, can you have the cake and eat it? On the one side, we are a country that will benefit greatly with free passage of the Suez Canal. On the other side, when there is a conflict, if they use that alternative route, if that whole stretch is closed, we are the country that will lose the most. So therefore, again, the point that I said, we must participate in the process. I saw on social media and all where say that this our small little navy boat will be blown to smithereens. So that is not the point. I'm sure all those aspects have been taken into consideration by the Sri Lanka Navy before they deployed, right? But we must be objective. Are we going to be a participatory factor in terms of protecting our interest, economic interest, or are we going to let it go and suffer for the process? So these are new ways of thinking about issues. Traditionally, we would have said, no, we are not on the line, we can't, we will just be aside, right? And let's see how it happens, and then we get affected. So now we are looking at a terrorist situation, right?
Yeah.
When they arbitrarily attack commercial shipping lines, it is a terrorist situation. So how do we look at terrorism? We can't, even during the LTT time, one thing we always said is that we cannot differentiate between terrorists. So therefore, we have a lot to lose. If we don't participate in a global aspect of it, we have a lot to lose. So we have to now look at what is beneficial to us, because the slightest change, the slightest thing that affects our economy will go back again to what it was. So we only have a very thin space within which we have to protect our revenue and, if at all, increase it. Now, for example, I am made to understand that the transshipment volumes have increased because of this issue. So we have
Yeah.
to capitalize on that. This has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do with what political party you represent. It has to do with economics. So at certain given times when you're governing a country, you have to look at the economic perspective rather than the political aspect of it.
Right, Mr. Sajin Vass Gunawardena, we'll have to leave it at that because we've jumped our time. Thank you for being with us on the program today, and hopefully we'll have you again very soon to discuss more about the SLFP and related matters.
Thank you very much, Easwaran, and I wish you all the best for your new adventure down under. And may you prosper, and but continue your links with Sri Lanka always.
Of course, I will never forget Sri Lanka. Thank you so much. And that's all the time we have for you for On Fire for this week. Till next time, stay safe.